Do you commute? I figured you would work from home.
I mostly work from home. They've reopened our office, and we're supposed to be going in like 3 times a week. I'm not doing that yet because it feels like a lot. But I'm going in like once a week.
Yeah,
Like, I'm here.
My firm is like, if you're a timekeeper, which I am, because I'm a special paralegal.
Oh, snap.
Like, if you're a timekeeper, then you don't have to, but we encourage you to come into the office once a week. And I'm like, I don't have pants that fit, silly.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You think I'm coming into the office with basketball shorts? No.
No, thank you. That has been an issue. 1, because of pandemic. 2, because of pregnancy. So, like, my feet I don't have any shoes that fit. I don't have any, like...
Wait. You're proggers?
I am pregante.
I had no idea. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Leo's due in July. But what that means is I'm a human submarine at this point.
Yeah. I imagine it's a weird feeling.
It's weird. It's also like, if I didn't want to go into the office before, I definitely don't now. I want a nap instead.
So, okay. So your child's name is gonna be Leo, correct?
He might be a double Leo. Yeah.
Well, so unless it's like later into July, then
it's
he'll be July. A Cancer.
It's like
end
a
of
29th.
July?
So he could be early, I guess.
We'll see.
Short for Leonidas. That's very good, and that's now my story, Trixie.
Is it short for anything, or is it just Leo?
I'm just gonna do Leo.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Or
okay, yeah, so they could be double Leo. I love that.
Or, yeah, Kim and AJ did do a bullshit segment that was other suggestions for names for my child based on the Mass Effect planets.
Oh, and that's exciting.
Junthor was up there.
Well, I mean, if they're born early in the month, then do you have to switch the name to Cancer?
Look, my hands might be tied. I might have to. That's a rough name this is baby Cancer.
That's a rough name.
That's a rough start.
There was a Am I the Asshole post recently that I read where the person was talking about how right before he was born, his aunt passed away. And so his parents named him after his aunt as like a tribute thing, as you do. And so he's like, I've grown up with what I consider to be a more feminine name. And now that I'm older, I want to change it. And I told my parents, and they got very, very, very upset and were like threatening to cut me off.
Oh my God.
So he's like, is this a big deal? Like, am I the asshole? And then he posted an update. And in the update, he mentioned that his given name was Sabrina, which is an incredibly feminine name. Like, when I was reading the story,
like a Taylor or
no, or like a Leslie.
Yeah,
that's just straight up like Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of when I hear Sabrina.
Yeah, so he was bullied like mercilessly.
His name, I don't understand parents who are like, oh my gosh, you can't change your own name.
Yeah, it's wild. They eventually
Sabrina,
they eventually came to, which is good. But
also, like, Aunt Sabrina doesn't want her nephew to like be sad. Yay! Thank you, Roaming D&D.
Hey, Roaming.
It is our our second to last week for Stop AAPI Hate, which is our charity of the month. So thank you, Roaming. All of your subs, proceeds go there, and we appreciate you. Also,
Hell yeah.
Hi,
Have
everybody.
considered... No, sorry.
Have y'all ever considered changing your name? That's a good question.
Never in my life.
Ever. Who? What?
Me, a trans woman? Couldn't imagine.
What are the circumstances?
Why would I do that?
When would that happen? As a stuck with Molly cis person, been fine with it. If Leo ever wants to change Leo's name, go for it. I just had to name him something at this point that's not Junthor or Cancer.
Just you wait until he's an adult and he wants to change his name to Cancer. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my gosh, I have really manifested that in this stream. Nobody show Leo.
One day we'll just send the VOD to him secretly, anonymously.
Anonymously.
And then he'll know the truth.
He'll be like, I could have been Cancer this whole time. Or I could have been Junthor Cancer Russell.
Honestly, though, I don't know about the upcoming generation, but Gen Z, I feel like a Gen Zer would be excited to be called Cancer Junthor.
Yeah, honestly, it's so far that Gen Z, I'm sure, I love Gen Z.
Gen Z is amazing. All you Gen Zers out there, shout out.
Shout out to Gen Z. I love you. I would love to be you.
Yep.
Do you want to do this is very casual, but do you want to do an official introduction to Emma? Who is Emma? Why is Emma?
Sure.
Where is Emma?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Emma, also known as Emma Panada. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Emma Panada. On Twitch, we have a couple of D&D games going. And sometimes I stream other things, but not very often. And on Twitter, I mostly shitpost and troll my friends. But I'm also writing a TTRPG called All the Witches, which is why I'm here today. And you can follow that at twitter.com/allthewitches_.
Watch this,
and there's a lot of stuff happening. Lots of cool stuff. And I'm much more professional.
So much stuff is happening at All the Witches. I feel like there's constant progress updates where I'm like, when is Emma sleeping? What?
Never.
We don't need sleep.
I stay up until 2 a.m. and then I wake up at 9 and I do work and then I get off work and I do more work.
The life of someone with multiple jobs.
Yeah, pretty much. But this job is at least fun.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Are you saying the law is not fun?
Legal stuff? Intellectual property? Not fun?
What?
Say it ain't so.
What? So when did All the Witches, when did the idea occur to you that you wanted to maybe write an RPG system?
So it's a funny story. Initially, since starting to play TTRPGs and especially getting out of D&D and starting to play other systems, there was a time where I was playing a lot of different systems, and I was even playing some systems with the people who wrote them. And 400-page systems sort of stuff. And I could not wrap my head around the idea of why would you want to write a 400-page rule book, essentially. What is it that inspires you to do that? Mm-hmm. Couldn't wrap my head around it. And I talked to some friends, and they told me their stories, but still, I was like, not me, never. Couldn't do that. But then in 2020, and this is a really fucking nerdy thing, but this is a nerdy hobby, so I imagine it's okay. At the end of 2020, literally a couple months after I had this conversation with some friends, the trailer for Final Fantasy 16 came out.
No. If I had a guess, like before you said that, a guess for the trigger as to where all the witches came from, I don't think I would have made it to the trailer for Final Fantasy.
No,
7.
it's a little bit of a jump. It's a little bit of a jump. So trailer for Final Fantasy 16 came out. I grew up. Final Fantasy is like a really big part of my nerd life, and has been throughout the years. So I was very, very excited. And I had a lot of excitement and energy that I wanted to put into like a D&D campaign or something, but there weren't any great systems, in my opinion, that could be used for like a Final Fantasy campaign. So I was like, fuck it, I'll write my own. So I ended up writing about 140 pages of a Final Fantasy system.
What?
And play tested it a few times. It was streamed a couple times. People really, really enjoyed it. I did a short, like 6-session, like campaign using it with some friends, and it went well. I could tell that tweaks needed to happen. So when I ended the campaign, I was like, okay, this is like a season break sort of thing, and we'll come back after I make some revisions and stuff like that, as you do. But as I was thinking about it, I realized the extent of the revisions that needed to be made. And as I was thinking of those, I was thinking of more ways to make the system like more unique. Because at the time, there were like unique ideas in there, but there were also a lot of things that I was taking from other systems too.
Was it like powered by the apocalypse based, or what was, like, would you say kind of like the main
the main bits of inspiration were a system called Demon Gate that a friend wrote. There's obviously some D&D inspiration in there. And then there were like a couple small things that I took from other systems. But as I was thinking of revisions and everything, I was thinking of things that I wanted to make it more unique and more of its like own thing. And as I was coming up with all this, I realized I would need to rewrite effectively the entire like 140 page document.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh my god, that's a lot of work. So I fell into a slump where I wasn't working on it because I was just like, that's a lot of work and I don't want to do it right now.
Yeah, that's overwhelming.
Yeah, but during that time, I just kept thinking of more and more ideas. And working in IP, I know I can't make a Final Fantasy system and sell it anywhere because I will get sued. So
a little bit
just
sued.
A little bit sued. So I started thinking, okay, if I'm gonna put all this effort into this, I want to make it something where it's its own original IP, something that maybe I could like kickstart and make just a really cool product. So I started thinking about what IP I would want to use, or like general ideas of what I would want to do. I didn't want to do necessarily generic fantasy because I feel like that's a very overcrowded market. But
slightly done. Slightly done.
Around that time, I started running into a lot of TikToks, especially from queer and POC creators, talking about Harry Potter and how they grew up with Harry Potter, and it was like a big part of their like childhood and even their adulthood. And then She Who Must Not Be Named came out and started saying some shitty things.
Some really shitty things. Some continuously really shitty things. Yeah.
And I feel like that opened the floodgates of people talking about all these other problematic aspects of Harry Potter. But then there's still this large community of people where Harry Potter was something very important to them, and now they're queer and they're hurt by the author, but they still love like the universe and everything, and it's this difficult tension between like, can I still support this and like love it, or do I need to step away? And some people did step away. There are a lot of people making some really cool like witchy things now. And as I was coming across all these, I just started thinking about how I've always really loved the idea of, in D&D campaigns, having a party where it's just everybody is one class and getting to experience a story through that lens. And that was a natural progression to, why don't I just make my system where I take kind of one class or one idea, and we really just dive into looking at the specifics of that class and the variations and all of the uniqueness that can come in that.
You can be so much more nuanced than like, okay, you're the like one with the sword and you're the one with the like book spells and
so, and then naturally I was like, I love witches like all these other people. I grew up with Harry Potter. I was literally the same age as the actors as the movies were coming out, so it was very like personal to me. And so I was part of that community as well. And I was like, I want to create something for that community where it can be something where you can create your own adventures of being like a witch. And
I don't think that's done well. Not well, but it seems like that's when you came out with all the witches. I was like, that is a huge hole that I have found in other systems where if I want to play a witchy character, you have to do so much like homebrew or adjusting. There's not a lot of systems where it's like, okay, you get to be like a type of witch and be very specific about it and things like that.
Yeah. So right now there's a lot of customization in the system, and I'm really excited to kind of like show it off to people. But yeah, that was the general idea behind it. And then as I started thinking about what kind of world I wanted it to be set in, and all of those things, I just took a lot of inspiration from like Studio Ghibli. And of course, you've got some of the non-problematic aspects of Harry Potter that I think are going to pervade conversations about witches and wizards for a very long time, of like magical schools and things like that.
It's kind of like Tolkien vibes where you can't really escape some of the like world building around those sort of things, even if you are like done with Harry Potter.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the way we're working it right now is, rather than having world builders create an entire world, I have the world builders, currently I have 3, and I have them working on a region of the world each. And we'll have meetings and we'll talk about our regions and talk about ways that they could influence each other or just kind of throw ideas at everybody. And we'll have these 3 really fleshed out regions where you can start and have your campaigns. Your entire campaigns can be in one of those regions. Or as you're going as the GM, maybe you're like, ooh, I have this idea where it takes them out of the region, and then I can kind of homebrew my own stuff to like work in tandem with the region that we started in. And so I feel like it gives the GMs like a good jumping off point to start, and then if they want to homebrew their own stuff and kind of breathe more life into the world that is unique to their setting, then they can do that.
Can you talk about the decision to, because I know some people who might be thinking of doing their own RPG system are already world builders, right? Are already creative people who like to homebrew, so they might want to think, I want to do everything myself. I don't need other writers or other world builders. Can you talk about your decision of like why you decided to bring in additional voices for all the witches for that?
Absolutely, I would love to. I think it's incredibly important especially for me, because I'm trans, but I'm also white, and I was raised and socialized as a white male, and so I feel like my perspective is extremely limited, and my perspective has been done to death. And I don't bring a whole lot to the table in terms of bringing a unique voice to world building. And so earlier this year, literally, I think it was like January, I was tweeting out world builders in the TTRPG space, like, do you prefer to be brought on at the beginning of the project when there's barely any lore so you can help kind of flesh everything, or do you prefer to join later on when things are very set and then you just kind of add to it? And I got some responses, but I ended up bringing people on very early into this whole creative process, perhaps a bit too early. We can talk about how much information I think you should have here in a minute, but yeah, I wanted to bring diverse voices to create regions of this world, because I think diversity is incredibly important. And as I said, we've gotten so many worlds written by white men or white women or white non-binary people even, where that's just the entire focus. And
yeah, it's a snowstorm out there.
It's a snowstorm, exactly. And there's so much excitement for the D&D products that are coming out that are written by like POC creators, or systems that are coming out that are written by POC creators. And I think it's definitely time that we as white people kind of pass the reins and the trust to a lot of these things to POC creators, because I think they have a lot of unique perspectives that they can bring to our hobby. And also giving jobs and things to POC creators is always good. Yeah.
I don't remember, did you send out an announcement on Twitter, or how did you kind of get in contact with these different world builders?
I sent out an announcement on Twitter. At the time, like, I had the project Twitter, I had just started it. I had gotten a piece of art just to kind of like advertise loosely, and just said, hey, I'm hiring people for this new TTRPG. I need a graphic designer. I need a map artist. I need world builders. I need other game designers and all these other kind of little jobs. And I was like, some of these I won't be hiring for immediately, but some of them I will. And so I got those, and I went through and was looking at people's experience, kind of people's like race and gender or identity, and was looking to bring kind of like good bit of diversity to the group. So I ended up working with _D'Angelo, who's incredible. He just had a Kickstarter and successfully fund this week. So shout out to Emerald Templars. It's going to be amazing.
Shout out to Emerald Templars. That was an incredible Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get my hands on the system. But yeah, so he is an incredibly amazing Latino creator, and I'm so happy to work with him. Then I've got Sailor Scout Austin, who is a Black creator, who's also queer, and they're amazing, and I love them so much. And then I've got Lynn Meyer, who has like a pretty crazy, impressive resume. I don't remember the specifics, but as I was looking through it, I was like, this person is applying to work with me. That's weird, but she's really great.
In general, kind of like a strange. Did you feel any like imposter syndrome to be like trying to hire individuals? I don't know. It just. Yeah. I could see it going either way.
I didn't have imposter syndrome, but it was definitely really weird. There was a lot of guilt, and I know Stella Luna's in the chat, so I'm sure Stella Luna is very familiar with this feeling as well, because they've casted a few series recently where they've gotten a shit ton of applications. But as I was looking through, there were so many people that were cool that I was like, I want to work with you, but it just didn't end up working out.
Yeah.
And I knew like at the max I can pick 3 people. And having to like cut people and things based on the smallest criteria,
That's
you
brutal.
just feel so bad. And so that was really, really difficult. But I think I ended up with a really cool team. And then with the Kickstarter, I'm hoping that we hit a stretch goal or 2. And for that, I'll probably bring on more writers. And so hopefully I can reach out to some of those people that stood out and we can make some good content together.
So you had to like budget and kind of do the gross nitty gritty planning part at the very beginning, it sounds like.
Right. I didn't so much. I do have to budget each month, but this is all self-funded right now. So I'm paying all the artists and everything out of just what I make from my day job, which luckily I have a good paying day job. So that makes it a bit easier, but things are very slow moving because I pay everybody once a month, and I kind of have to be like, sometimes I can only pay for like a project like this size, especially with the writers, because for a 1,000-word document, that's $150 for basically each writer. And that can put a huge dent in my budget for the month.
That adds up, yeah.
So I just had the writers write 1,000-word drafts on each of their regions. And after this, I'm going to have them write 2,000-word drafts. And then they're going to be on pause until the Kickstarter. Because after that, I'm like, I can't really afford to have you write anything larger.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I feel bad because they've been working with me since like February, early March. And just the fact that we're moving so slowly because of my budget, I'm sure they don't mind at all, but I feel terrible.
You feel, yeah.
I'm like, I would rather give you all of the work and then you just do it and I can pay you like in one large payment, and then you can move on to bigger and better things, but I can't do that right now.
Yeah. Well, the Kickstarter too, you're planning 2023 for the Kickstarter sometime?
Not anymore.
What?
It's gonna be sometime this year.
Chatbot. Shut up. That's awesome.
Yeah, so just with the way things are progressing, and especially so that I can have the writers work on it sooner, and I'm not literally keeping them on hold for almost a year. We've moved the Kickstarter up a bit. We're gonna announce the exact date it'll be on Kickstarter in early August to try and kind of coincide with Gen Con.
Oh, smart.
But yes, it is happening this year.
Morning, Groovy. I have now updated the Stream Elements chatbot.
Huzzah!
Wait, hang on. No, I didn't save it. Don't look at that, anybody. Ignore that chat. It's not early 2023. That's exciting.
It's going to be the witchiest Gen Con. We've got
witchiest Gen
Witchy
Con.
Cakes by Trixie
Witchy
Wizard.
Cakes.
So excited. And then we'll have me passing out stickers and things for all the witches.
Also, like, so far, all the witches' art is so cute. Like, I love it. It's so cute.
I'm so glad. So the cover artist is Carson Druitt, who I knew because I know the Lady May and Stella Luna and everybody. And Carson's incredible. I love. I should get a like pointy hat and just wear it to Gen Con.
Honestly, I am down for like witchy cosplay vibes, like the whole back half of 2022.
I love it.
Let's go black lipstick. We got this. Gothy vibes.
Carson is incredible. I really love the cover art that he's making. Definitely worth it. And I am incredibly glad I found Maru, who is this Argentinian artist who didn't apply or anything. But as I was going through all of the applications for when people applied to work on all the witches, and there were quite a few people who applied to be artists. And some people, I would go to their profiles and they wouldn't have any art anywhere on their profile. So it's like, I don't know what your style is.
To make that determination with like. No art. Yeah.
Yeah. Others just really weren't the style I was looking for, or like the quality that I needed. And so I felt bad because I was being really picky, but I was like, I have a very specific vision for how I want this to look. And after none of the artists that applied really kind of jumped out to me, I ended up just kind of scrolling through TikTok, through like Twitter, looking for artists. And on Twitter one day I was looking at the commissions tab and I came across a piece that Maruchima did, which was of Rapunzel from Tangled after she got her haircut. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
And it's this incredibly detailed piece. I'm gonna find the link for you and just send it to you in DM. But it's incredible. And so I looked up who this artist was and saw that they had a round of commissions open and they had 3 different styles. They have the sketch style, which I loved. I'll send you. I end up getting
pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, I ended up getting a sketch of my OC Raylan, and it turned out amazing, and I love it a lot. And then they had this kind of like, they still consider this a sketch style, but it's like a colored sketch. And I'm like, this is not a colored sketch. And then they have a like fully rendered style, which is good, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. But I saw this Rapunzel piece and I was blown away. And I'm not entirely sure of the I've looked up the conversion of USD to Argentinian money, and it's significant, but Maru was charging $10 for a sketch piece.
Stop.
And $30 for this like Rapunzel piece.
Artists charge more. Charge more, artists.
Like, I commissioned her and I was like, hey, I want this sketch style, but I'm absolutely not comfortable paying that little. Can I pay you more? And she was like, yeah. And afterwards, she finished the piece. I was in love with it. And I was like, I highly suggest, your art is incredible. She, at the same time, she was getting commissions from some larger accounts as well. And I was like, you should really charge more for your work. And she was like, thanks so much. I'll think about it. And then,
that's ridiculous.
So this is the Rapunzel piece, which is fucking incredible.
That's so gorgeous. And it's such a distinctive style too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so after that, I was like, in my wildest dreams, this artist would work on with me on the system. And I was like, I might as well just ask. I'll give a link to Marushima's Twitter.
Perfect.
I was like, in my wildest dreams, this artist would work with me. And so I decided to just ask. And I was like, hey, I know you're finishing this round of commissions, but I'm like working on this. Yeah, and this is the sketch style that she does, which is gorgeous. But I was like, I'm working on this book and I need like a character artist to help me with these 9 pieces, which now it's 10 pieces. I was like, I'll pay you a lot more than you're asking, if you'd be down to work with me. And she was like, sure, yeah, absolutely. And so then she's done 2 pieces for me now, which are both incredible. And she's taking a small break, and I'm going to check in with her today to see if she's ready for the 3rd. But I'm so glad that I found Maru and she was willing to work with me, because she's incredible.
That was so smart to just, like, when you did not find an applicant of the style that you were imagining, be like, okay, I'm going to go research and skim on my own.
Mm-hmm. And, like, art is so important for a TTRPG, and especially anything that you're going to bring to a Kickstarter, because people are going to buy with their eyes. The art is going to be the first thing they notice. Everything else is going to be largely secondary to that, if not tertiary. And so I wanted to find really, really good art that was going to leap out at people as they come across the Kickstarter. And I think I've found some really amazing artists to help with that, and I'm incredibly thankful. I'm actually, with this next drawing, I'm gonna ask Maru if she's comfortable with me paying her more, because even though I'm paying her very above her asking price, I still feel like she's being underpaid.
Which was wrong. Yeah, her asking price was wrong.
I still feel like she's being underpaid, and so I want, and like largely she's doing like one drawing a month for me, so it's like pretty easy to budget.
That is a great point that I didn't think about. Yeah, if someone's looking through a Kickstarter or, you know, online new system, they're not gonna notice the rule system first and foremost. Like, that's not gonna be what catches their eye. And
yeah, there are a lot of Kickstarters that don't even really talk about the rule system. They'll talk about the setting, they'll show the art, they'll talk about, like, if there are classes, they'll say what classes there are. But a lot of times I have to ask people, like, what dice mechanics does this use? How does this practically work? And sometimes they'll say, like, for Emerald Templars, there was a little section that said, oh, this uses D100. But it doesn't go into detail. So you're not really selling the game system itself. You're selling everything around the game system. And then people kind of find out, unless it's powered by the Apocalypse or D&D, people find out the specifics of the system once they're able to get their hands on it.
So I saw that all the witches might have like deck builder elements to it.
Yeah.
Are you sharing some of the system details yet, or is that like a future scoop?
I can share a little bit. Yeah.
Just like a hint, like a little teaser.
Just little teasers.
Little teaser.
So, the deck building system only comes in certain parts of the game. In all the witches travel around. They're primary and traditional duty is to, hey Kimmies, these TTRPG games.
I posted that. I was just immediately like,
yeah.
I know what the G stands for, everybody. I know it's for games.
So a witch's primary and traditional duty in society is to travel around and help people who have been taken by something called discordance. And discordance is this, it's caused by something, but I'm never going to talk about what it's actually caused by. But it's
love it.
kind of darker force of temptation almost, that when you undergo extreme periods of stress, you fall further and further into discordance. And for humans and spirits, this looks a bit different. For humans, when you're tempted into discordance, you start kind of moving more and more into one emotion. So like maybe you become a lot more angry, or you become a lot more greedy or prideful. And having somebody in a community that is under discordance like that can largely affect the community around them, especially if it's somebody in a position of power. And for spirits, their physical form changes as they go into discordance, and eventually they'll end up like a creature that's on the cover piece, where it's like this large monster looking thing. And so witches travel around and they perform what's called a harmonization ceremony. And when they do this, they effectively enter the person's subconscious. And their magic is a lot more restricted, and it's harder to use. And so that's shown in the deck building mechanics. And that the spells you've learned and some of the various abilities that you have, they're kind of turned into these cards, and you have a number of cards in hand that you can use. But then you have different other abilities and things that you can draw more, or like discard your hand and draw a new hand. And
that's so, this is so fucking cool. This is such a cool, like, hey, we're doing an RPG. We're now like in a consciousness, and now there's a deck building element. Okay, sorry, this is very fucking cool.
But I'm so glad. But yeah, so you have to use these resources that are available to you, and it's part luck and part kind of planning based on what abilities you've taken as you've been leveling up. And you have to use those abilities to effectively get through this person's subconscious and help them to harmonize. And the way the subconscious plays out is, if you've ever played Persona, it's not as dramatic, but it's similar in that you're going into these realms that are created by the person's subconscious, and you're like battling through those realms to get to the heart of what's causing them to be under discordance. And once you defeat that, then they achieve harmony again, and they're Gucci. But yeah, so that's where the deck building mechanics come in. Also, during winter, in the world, magic is weaker. So largely, witches aren't traveling around helping people during winter. Instead, they're doing personal things, like maybe they're crafting, or maybe they're learning something specific. There's going to be a whole other set of rules for quote unquote downtime actions that you can do during winter, or various adventures you can go on during winter. But if something does come up and you have to use magic, then it's going to work within this deck building system, where it's a lot more restricted.
That's fascinating. Okay, I I'm happy that I convinced you to do a teaser, but now I like need so much more, so much more about all the witches. That's awesome. Did you have what came first? The like the rule system that like did you design that first and kind of build the world around it, or were you doing more like narrative world building characters and kind of filled in with the rule system afterwards?
So I worked on the rule system first. When we started, I really didn't have much information from my world builders, which is why I have opinions on like how much you should have kind of written out and prepared before you bring world builders on, even if you are wanting to bring them on pretty early.
Yeah, do the opinions. Let's get into that. That makes sense.
So I think you should at least have a 5-page document talking about like your inspirations for the world, some of the rules that exist within the world, how magic specifically works, and how magic is seen in society, how it's utilized. Can everybody use it? Can only a few people use it? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just kind of laying the groundwork for how the world works. Because when I brought in my world builders, I was like, I want it to be kind of Studio Ghibli-esque. Mm-hmm. Everybody can use magic, but yeah, everybody can use magic, but it's not really something you make money from most often, and so not a lot of people do it. I was like, there are some schools in the world that teach magic, but otherwise largely it's done through a mentor-mentee kind of role and all these other things. But I had very little information, and my world builders had to ask a lot of questions to try to understand what I was going for. And I felt very badly. So yeah, but yes. From writing the Final Fantasy system, there were certain things that I wanted to bring over, like, for instance, the quote-unquote class system. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work so much like in D&D or a lot of systems where you have a class and you level up and you get certain abilities under that class. How it works is there are 10 magical disciplines, and I can just talk about what disciplines there are right now. These aren't the final names for what the disciplines will be, but bark.
The dire Korg.
But these are roughly kind of like categories for the type of magic that will fall under that. So there's enchanter, alchemist, diviner, transmuter, psychic, healer, necromancer, illusionist, elementalist, and conjurer.
And all of those sound cool.
Under each of these disciplines, there are probably 2 to 3 like skill trees, basically. Mm-hmm. And when you start the game and when you level up, you'll get ability points that you can put into a skill tree to progress that skill tree. And you'll learn spells and abilities from growing through these different skill trees.
I love that. And I love, like, most people will kind of understand how points and skill trees work.
Yeah. And you're not restricted to only one magical discipline. You can kind of progress down 3 or 5 or really however many skill trees you want under various magical disciplines, to make your character really as unique as you want them to be. And so I brought
Trixie asks, do you have a favorite?
Great question. None of them are fleshed out enough that I think none of them are fleshed out enough yet that I can say that I have a definite favorite. I really like Diviner because you use the diviner basically can use magic. One of their things is they use magic to gain insight into a situation or a target or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And for this, the GM will utilize tarot cards in the major arcana, and will give a couple tarot cards to the diviner and not explain them or anything, but
cool.
Just to give them, like, say you're using a spell to try to get more information about this lord that is under discordance that you're trying to help, and you cast a spell and the GM gives you the Lover's card, and so you know this person fell into discordance because some sort of relationship. And you kind of like read into these cards to try to speculate, and I think that's
so
a lot
fun.
of fun.
That's so fun. Xander fell, which, hi Zandy, asks if there's a most difficult mechanic to develop or like a trickier part so far.
So right now I'm writing the a very early like play testable like player's handbook, so that I can run some simple sessions with some friends. And the hardest part by far is writing out the skills and abilities and the skill trees, because in the Final Fantasy system, there were, I think, 12 to 15 classes, or class archetypes is what they were called in the system. And under each class archetype, there was 15 abilities. And all of that took up about 80 pages, I think, 80 to 90 pages. And I'm at that point in writing All the Witches right now, where I'm writing the skills and abilities, and it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of work. And hey, Hafa.
Hey, Hafa.
And
Thank
so
you for the sub.
That's definitely a very difficult part. But it's difficult in its kind of tediousness. Other parts, like I had a document in between writing the Final Fantasy system and starting kind of writing All the Witches, where I would just put various ideas and things that I had about like cool system mechanics. And now I'm looking through that document and I'm adding things into All the Witches and kind of making it work all together. And so coming up with core concepts for the system hasn't been hard, because I have this document where I have months and months and months worth of thoughts of different ideas that I could use that I'm just like importing into the system. And so that's not as difficult. The difficult part is just writing this however many pages it's going to turn out to be worth of ability.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree, Xanderfell. The effort required, just the stuff we've gone through in the past hour of just like all of the considerations, writers, diversity, art, mechanics, concepts. It's, do you keep track of it all? Like, is there like a master doc, or is it all just kind of in your head in terms of keeping track of all the different elements?
It's largely in my head. That's kind of how I've always worked. Is with D&D too, I'm much more of an improvisational DM. I don't have documents where I have a lot of world building stuff written out and everything's super detailed. How it works is just during like the week between sessions, my brain is constantly working and thinking about like new story elements, or how I can handle like X situation or Y situation. And I just think about all these things constantly. And so once we get to the session, I know the setting because I think about it a lot. I know the villains and the different players because I think about them throughout the week. And I've thought about a bunch of different ideas of like, what if the players do this? And so I'm kind of prepared if they do something similar, but not exactly.
Yeah.
And in the same way, for system development, I think about game concepts constantly, and sometimes I'll be taking a nap and I'll just have an idea really quick. So I'll open up a Google Doc and I'll write the idea down. But with world builders and everything, I know who's working on what, and they're much more organized than I am, and that they write all of their stuff down.
That's the key.
So
just hire the organized people.
Yeah. I have documents where they're telling me what they're working on. So I know what's going there. But for game design, I have all of these concepts in my head and in this secondary document. And then I'm fleshing it all out and putting it all together in this like player's guide. And initially, back in January or February, when I sent out the like hiring news bulletin, and I got a lot of applications. I got applications from a lot of really cool game designers, and a couple of them have followed up with me asking if I was still looking to bring on another game designer. But right now, I feel bad because I'm like, I can't bring on another game designer right now because like all of this stuff is in my head or loosely in this other document. And so once I write through this player's guide and maybe write a little bit more is when I'll bring on a second person to start giving me their opinions and insights and ideas. Because then it'll be very fleshed out. They can look at it, read it, understand how it's working. But me just telling them, it would be a big jarbled mess.
Yeah, big mess. I DM the same way, where like if I were to just be like, okay, I need to write what's gonna happen or outline, and I sit down, I don't have my best ideas. It takes a long time. It's never good. It's always like I'm in the shower or I'm working out or I'm just like out and about and I'm thinking of things is when it occurs to me, different DMs. Yeah, Groovy, exactly. The transition from like heads to text. I think that's got to be like 90% of the effort in creating these RPGs, because you can have all sorts of incredible ideas, but there's only a few people that are going to take the effort to move it from your head to like writing it down, making a system, organizing, hiring. Like that's the sweat equity of creating a game. It seems to me. I have not done it yet. because of the like transition from like head to paper being such a big like stumbling block for a lot of people.
Yeah. Sometimes with that transition, you'll start writing things out and you'll realize, oh, this doesn't work at all. And that can be really dejecting. But other times you'll write things out and as you're connecting two different ideas, you come up with like a really cool transitionary piece. Like originally, when I was developing the system, the idea was to have all of it be deck building based. But as I was writing it out, I was just realizing this doesn't work at all, but this is still a piece that I really want to have in the system. So outside of winter and the harmonization ceremonies, magic works completely differently, and you have full access to your spells and things and can cast them a certain number of days equal to your your endurance trait. But I realized like, oh, winter and during these ceremonies, like this is when magic is naturally restricted and there's in-world reasons for why magic is restricted. This is a great place where I can put in that deck builder mechanic because it makes sense. But outside of that, if I was like everything's deck building, then it doesn't really make sense, because a player could be like, why can't I cast X spell just whenever I want? Because
right, like, if I put my points into endurance and focused on that.
Yeah. So I'm very, very glad I figured that out. And I was still able to keep the deck building mechanics in the game. But when I realized it wasn't working when I was putting pen to paper, I was like, fuck. But other times it'll just, as you're fleshing things out, it just helps you come up with even more cool things. And it's really exciting.
Awesome. How long have you been working on this? Like, 'cause I know you were doing the Final Fantasy in 2020.
So All the Witches specifically I started thinking about it probably in December. And that's probably when I started the document and started putting stuff in there.
Okay, you said you were moving slowly, but that's fast from December brainstorming to what are we now? May, and you're already writing, and you have writers, and you have some art, and you're like planning a Kickstarter this year. That's a pace, Emma.
Yeah, I imagine it's fast for me. I consider it slow for everybody else working on the project. Because I can only hire them to do so much each month. And so it has to be this like stopping point. And I feel frustrated for them. I don't think that they're frustrated at all. I don't know that they are. But you have the guilt. I'm sure they're fine. They're just chilling and working on other things. But for me, I feel bad that I have to limit them so much, and I can't just be like, oh, hey, can you work on X and Y and Z and whatever else? And then they just knock it all out in their time, and then they get to work on other projects. But instead, I've just kind of got them not on like, I don't want to say on the leash or anything, but I'm constantly like there. And every month I'm like, oh, can you work on this now? And then they work on that. And then they start working on other things. And then the next month I'm like, oh, hey, remember me? Can you do this now? Yeah.
All the witches, we're back.
All the witches, we back though. So I'm wanting to get to the Kickstarter so that I'll have the money where I can just be like, hey, can you work on these things? And then once they're done, I'm like, you're free of me.
You've been released.
You're released from your contractual duties.
Have you done a Kickstarter before? Or
nope.
Was your first one? Okay.
First one, I'm very nervous. I'm gonna hire someone who has experience with Kickstarters, just to help me put it together and stuff, because there are people, for a lot of indie TTRPGs, it seems like the goal you want to hit is 10,000, 10 or 15,000, but I have no idea like what's the breakdown, right? If you use X money for what, is there money that I need to be sure to keep aside for like taxes? Are like how much money do I need to raise if I want to have like a physical release? All of these like considerations and things, or like
how does backer kit work?
How does backer kit work? If I do want a physical release, who are some companies I can reach out to do like physical prints? And it's terrifying. But I'm gonna hire somebody to help me. And
I think that's the smart, like, there are people with skills, and it's okay to acknowledge that, like, I'm great in these areas and I've done this and I have experience with this, but like I don't have experience with this. Let me go talk to somebody who like has the knowledge and has the expertise.
Yeah. And honestly, if the project isn't funded, great. That's fine.
There's relief either way.
There's relief either way, because then I don't have to worry about all of this money and like production and all these other things. Like, I'll still be developing the system. It'll just still be a very slow pace, because it'll be self-funded. But if it does get funded, suddenly I have to worry about all the other stresses of making sure that we make a really good product that is worth all this money people paid, and figuring out distributors and printers and all these other things, how it's all packaged together, and making sure it all gets out. And it's a lot to keep track of. Mm-hmm. So I think it's stress either way, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun.
I'll have help. So,
do you have thoughts on like maybe stretch goals you would want to add, or is that just so like such a future consideration?
One of the stretch goals is going to be a physical release.
Dope.
I think I want to focus primarily on making a full good product, where I have the budget for art and other things, and I don't have to worry about setting aside a large chunk for printing fees and shipping and everything.
Captain C has arrived.
Captain C of the good ship clip.
Of the good ship clip.
And then here's a bit of advice from a game I helped. If you make cards, make sure it's a company that has been making cards before, or at least has a satisfaction clause. Don't accept product that isn't right. It's good advice. Thank you,
that's great advice.
Yeah. So there are Trixie Wizard is doing a card game, and so hopefully if we do get a physical release, I can ask them like, hey, who did you use? But yeah, I want like the primary budget to be set so that I can have artists and world builders and stuff put like actual content in the book. And then a stretch goal will hit where I can then use that money to be focused on physical releases and stuff. Other stretch goals is to bring on other writers to develop regions of their own.
That's cool.
I would love to have like a South Asian writer, like an East Asian writer, maybe an indigenous writer, to kind of write regions as well, to give people even more like diverse, cool options of places to have their campaigns. And those are big ones. There's potentially an additional magical archetype I can add, but honestly, with game design stuff, I find it weird when Kickstarters are like, oh, if we get $3,000 over funding, we'll add this other class. And I'm like, for me, as the person working on all the game design mechanics, I'm like, why wouldn't I just want to add that other class now because I thought of it and it's cool and I want it to be in the book. So I think it'll largely be. There's also a sense of
like what's the like complete game then? If it's like,
yeah,
I've seen stretch goals where it's like you're adding so much substance with the stretch goals. This feels like it's all part of the game as it was originally intended.
Yeah, it's kind of like with video games where it'll have day one DLC or like month one DLC that seems very important to the story.
Yes.
And you're like, shouldn't this have just been like part of the game? It seems like this is important.
Yeah, it feels like on this DLC. Yeah, like, isn't this a character that everyone loved and is a huge main part of the story, and why is it a DLC?
Yeah, and same thing with Kickstarters. Sometimes I'll look at stuff and they'll talk about all the things they can add, and either it's stuff they've prepped already, and if they don't hit that stretch goal, they'll just take it out. Or that's the way it seems to me. Or they have all this other content where if we don't hit those stretch goals, I feel like I'm not getting like the full book, because I know there's this other cool stuff that could have been included that's not. So from my game design perspective, I want to put like all the stuff in there. And so largely stretch goals will be used for writers and artists and stuff like that.
Very cool. Maybe specific decks or something, like an actual
maybe like
thing.
Yeah, I would love to have a tarot deck with the major arcana, which there's going to be like a digital version, but if there's physical releases, then there can be like different styles maybe. And then there's like the actual spell cards and ability cards that you use for the deck building mechanics, and there's stuff that you could do with that with stretch goals. So yeah, it's all sorts of stuff that's possible, but I'm just worried about the first funding goal, and then we'll see.
Like step 1, hey, finish the game, have a game. Step 1, 2, finish figure the game. Out Kickstarter.
I would love, because I'm going to have, I have these stickers. I got stickers of the like character art that we've gotten done so far.
Which, by the way, that little witch is so cute.
Yeah, I love them. And then there's this one, and it has like a QR scanner that leads to
that witch
like
is hot.
our
witch
link
is
tree.
Cute. That witch is just hot.
And so I'm gonna have these at Gen Con that I'll be passing out, and I also have business cards that are amazing, but I haven't shared the design for those publicly yet. But
I didn't realize you could do stickers that have the scan for your link tree. That's really cool.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'll be passing those out, and I would love if I have like friends going and stuff, and I think it would be really cool to just do random games of all the witches there if we have time, of just like, oh hey, you guys want to play? And then like we play, and it's just like a little play test, and it's fun.
That feels like what Gen Con vibes should be anyways. Like, hey, let's play a little game.
Yeah. So
Xanderfell was like, okay, step 1 is have fun. Step 2 is finish the game. Step 3 is Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Good priorities.
Both just raise our hands. Yes, please. Absolutely. I will make that happen for us, Adam and Aaron. I'm trying to have the player's guide playtest thing done by the end of this month. I don't know if that'll happen now. My grandma died last weekend, and then before that, it was the stress of knowing she was about to die.
Yep.
Thanks.
Just an awful like situation.
Yeah. So that kind of threw a wrench into my productivity of working on things. But I'm planning on writing a bit this weekend, and then hopefully I get a lot done and I can finish by the end of this month and start playtesting with some people off streams and things, and make tweaks and adjustments and develop more as we go. But yeah, it'd be cool to have like a pretty fleshed out product by the time Gen Con comes around that I can just show people that want to see.
You all also just better tweet so much from Gen Con. I'm going to have such FOMO.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to tweet a lot and have pictures and be like, come find me and I'll give you stickers and things like that.
That's due date week. So I was originally like, do I want to go to Gen Con? I was like, oh, I absolutely can't go to Gen Con. But I will be on Twitter all the time, living vicariously. Yeah.
We're going to hang out. We're going to party. It's going to be so fun. And we'll zoom you in.
Let me put Emma's, zoom me in from my, I will have not slept, but I will be interested. So follow Emma on Twitter, and which is on Twitter. I assume if you're going to Gen Con and you want updates on, where everything will be happening,
Where all the cool people will be at.
Where all the cool people will be at.
The answer is Artist Alley and like I forget what it's called. There's an alley for new publishers as well and new games.
Oh, cool.
And I feel like I'm gonna be hanging out there in Artist Alley a lot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be my
I would
niche.
spend so much money if I went to Gen Con. So at least I'm saving a little bit. The silver lining to my FOMO is like I'm not gonna be just buying art left and right.
Yeah, I will be.
Yes.
I'll be in debt. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Worth it.
Yeah, worth it. Absolutely. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
got you next year.
I'm super excited. Super, super excited. Also, me and Piper are getting married at Gen Con.
Sweet.
So...
Stop! I did not know this. I did not know y'all were
Yeah.
engaged. Congratulations.
Wait, you didn't know we were engaged?
No,
Yeah, we're
wait.
engaged.
I completely somehow missed that. Congratulations.
Thank you. I proposed on stream back in January at the end of Stella Luna's stream.
I'm gonna immediately after this stream gonna go find that VOD. That's so exciting.
I'll send you the link. But
Emma, you're
yeah,
doing
we're getting
so much
married
this year.
It's a lot. We're getting married at Gen Con. It's gonna be like a quick courthouse marriage sort of deal. But yeah, so we're gonna get married like right towards the beginning, and then the rest of the weekend, if you see us, we'll be newlyweds. So
That's
exciting
so
stuff.
Cute. Ah! I love that. Okay, so I really will be just like on Twitter the whole time, like
Yeah.
how to go. Send me the pics. Congrats from chat.
Thanks everybody. It's really exciting. I'm hyped.
Yeah.
So much is happening at Gen Con. Absolutely.
Emma's Gen Con. So yeah, just a casual 2022 for
just super cash.
Super cash.
And then I have to hire immigration attorneys to help me immigrate to Canada.
That it would make sense, and I think probably is a good call.
Yeah, I don't want to try to do that all myself. That sounds stressful. I will accept a backpack of flower petals. Absolutely. Please do.
You don't see Aaron the first time, it's just flower petals.
That'd be amazing.
That would be so great. Okay, so we've gone over a lot of the building process. What are some things that like have been your favorite parts of building a system so far that you kind of weren't expecting or have been the most enjoyable parts for you?
A big part for me is working with artists. I love art. I get commissions all the time. So being able to work with artists and be like, and get art constantly is amazing.
Here's money. Give me art, please.
Yeah. I have Maru working on like the finalized versions of like the pieces, but then my friend Nina Wolverina does little drafts of like character concepts that I send to Maru to like kind of fully flesh out.
Oh, cool.
Because I'm not an artist, and
that's not entirely true. One, because you drew like the most adorable little vampire man for our one shot. So
That's
I would say
true.
skill-wise, you are beyond those of us who don't art at all.
I don't consider myself a very good artist. And Maru is Argentinian. She speaks English, but at the very beginning, she was like, I don't think my English is great or anything. So in order to avoid any miscommunications or anything, I don't want to send her like a shit ton of references and being like, put all this together.
Yeah.
So
that makes
instead,
sense.
I do that process with Nina. And then I ask Nina to put them together, and then I send that sketch to Maru. And this is a
full
sneak peek
artist
at
network.
this is the sneak peek at the Oracle. And this is a spirit And specifically, this is the spirit of the creature that appears on the cover that Carson is working on in a discordance form.
Y'all get excited for this. This is wild.
So getting to work with artists is so much fun, and I love it. And seeing these things like realized and put together and posting it on Twitter and people getting really excited about it. So much fun. So yeah, so this is going to be the character image for the Oracle.
Oh, it's so cool and eldritchy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. What a vibe. Like, what a vibe.
So if Maru is good to start working again today, then I'll be sending that to her and she'll be working on it. But it's all very exciting. I also really love coming up with unique concepts that I haven't seen in TTRPG systems before and throwing them in my book. Like my dice system, I in no way think that this is unique. I probably just haven't come across a system that's used this dice system before. But I feel like it's pretty simple, and I'd be surprised if nobody's done it before. But
how many dice are we talking? Yeah, let's get into the dice details.
We use the full spectrum except for the D100.
Nice. Okay.
So we use D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and D20. And rather than like in D&D and other systems, you know, like players roll the dice and they're trying to beat like whatever number. The difficulty check is 15. So you roll a D20, you add your modifiers and stuff. If you get a 15, you succeed. If you don't, you fail. For all the witches, there are 4 attributes that affect skill checks. There's, gotta pull up my document so that I remember the actual names of each of them. But you have power, agility, soul, and mind. So each of these will have an attribute rank. And these attributes can like level up as you're playing and stuff. So starting off, none of them will be greater than 4. And scores can't be less than 1. So at the beginning, say your agility score is 2. And you're going around and you're having to sneak around like a town or something to find information. So while you're sneaking, the GM will be like, hey, give me a like agility check for stealth, and the difficulty is a D8 because there are guards around or whatever else. So the difficulty is the die, and on the die you're trying to roll below your attribute score.
That's great. That's so simple, but that's great.
Numbers. Yeah, numbers.
Yeah, it's just simple number. Having to do
every dice has the low numbers.
Yeah.
And so when I'm rolling a D8 on this check, I'm trying to get a 2 or less. If I have a skill that's that affects stealth, then I can that also factors into stuff as well, but I'm not sharing that publicly right now because I got to keep some secrets. So I roll, I get a 2, I pass. And then as you're leveling up, and the system's going to encourage that GMs kind of keep track of what difficulties certain things are. So say, for instance, at the beginning of a campaign, your players are like just starting off, they're having to lockpick a door of a tavern or something, or one of the tavern rooms. It's like a simple tavern. They don't have the best locks. So your GM is like, make a lock-picking check based on agility, that's a D4. So your agility is 3, so you need a 3 or less. You roll, you get it, whatever. Then as you're leveling up, say in the future your agility is now 5, you're in a different town. You can just do it. You go to a different town, and it's like a small, like, nothing inn. You're trying to pick a lock in one of the rooms, and you know from before the DC is a D4, and now your skill exceeds that, so you just get to succeed rather than having to like check. There are some rules that, like, if DMs still want a chance of failure on every check and your player's skill exceeds the rank of the check, you can roll a D20, and if you roll a 1 to 3, then it fails. But that's an optional rule.
I love it because it's simpler for both the GM and the player to just have, like, this is the DC. It's a die. You know what the DC is ahead of time, so there's not like an imaginary number that you don't know how to get. And I love the tension it adds for the rolls too. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm rolling this big die. The odds that I get my number are so much lower.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah, so that's like the dice system. And when, again, there's probably another system that has done this, but when I thought of it, I was just like, of course, small numbers.
Small numbers.
We can use this.
They're on all the dice.
They're on all the dice. Common denominators. So coming up with some like rules and stuff that I just think are like really cool and clever or whatever else, and getting to throw those in there and make it work in the system at large. Super fun.
Yeah. Also, I would imagine too, it will feel more as you like add your points into scores and can just do things in the world. Like, what a feeling of actual like growth for your character.
Yeah.
Be like, this is like, now just an ability I have.
Yeah. Cause like I've heard it so many times where playing D&D, you're a level 10 rogue or something, and you're supposed to be really good at sneaking, and then you just happen to roll a 1 and fail the check, and the GM's like, oh, you like fart or like kick a can or something, and you're like, I feel like my character is better than that. But
the cleric in heavy armor somehow rolls like a 19 or something, or a 20.
Yeah. But just having things where like your scores can actually reflect how good your character is at something, and you don't have to worry about this larger chance of failure every time you roll, if you're actually good at that thing. And skills work in a bit of a different way as well, and that skills are categorized into 3 things. There's general skills, specific skills, and weaknesses.
Ooh.
General skills and specific skills play together. Rather than us giving you a list of skills and saying like, oh, pick what of these skills you're proficient in. Instead, you get to kind of write yourself what you think your character is good at.
I love that.
So for general skills, it's like a general thing. So if your character is really smart, maybe your general skill is like history. And then your specific skill under history is like maybe a specific historical event, or like related to a specific like king or like region. And you get to write that in, and then during play, if you come across a skill check where you think your skill is related and you can make an argument for it, then you get like a special bonus. And for weaknesses, it's kind of the opposite effect, where if it's a skill related to your weakness, then it hurts you a bit.
I like having weaknesses. I feel like that
weaknesses
makes it a
are
fun
great.
Flavor. Like, yeah, what a way to flavor a character.
Yeah, the idea for that is that as you're leveling and you get to increase your attribute ranks, it could theoretically get to a point where you're like good at almost everything, right? But having weakness or having specific weaknesses in your skills kind of help balance that a little bit of like, even if your attribute for mind is really high, if your character is knowingly bad at, we'll use the same example and say history, you're gonna have like a detriment to each of your rolls.
Which is more realistic, because no one's gonna get good at all history in the course of like, you know, several weeks of adventuring. Not to shade time in D&D, because we do that a lot, but just like it's a little less realistic if you think through some of the like skill bumps as you go on.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all exciting stuff, and then there's things that I think are cool that I did with, I don't know if I should call them races or species, because it's spirit and human aren't really races. They're like different things, you know?
Yeah.
But species sounds weird.
They both don't quite fit, but there's no other word in my head that's helping.
Yeah. But rather than getting specific, like in D&D, it's like, oh, you can give yourself a +2 to an ability score and a +1 based on your race, or that's how it used to be. And you get these specific skills as your race. Rather than that stuff, for humans, or for each race, you have what's called a discordance chart. And during game, you can intentionally put yourself into different levels of discordance to get in-game advantages.
Oh my god, that's so good.
For humans, when you start the game, you'll pick like 1 or 2 emotions that in like a stressful situation, where the world is kind of bearing down on your character, how do they become? Do they like rely on anger? Do they get very prideful? Whatever. And you can put yourself in discordance to get a +1 to your success range for a roll, or you can get a re-roll. And
what a tension.
And like... as you're doing that, you're supposed to start role-playing your character into different levels of like being more angry or prideful as you're going through the different levels. And so humans have much more gameplay mechanic related like abilities that they get from their discordance chart. Spirits, on the other hand, they get, right now it's 4, I might reduce it, but they have 4 traits that they choose at the beginning of the game. So that once they go through discordance, they can put a point into one of those traits. So maybe one of them is flight. So as you're going through discordance, you get varying degrees of being able to fly. At first, you fly maybe half of your normal speed, and then like flight speed equal to your normal speed, and then flight speed double your normal speed.
And I can totally see that temptation of like, it's worth it just to get flight if I just go a little bit into discordance. And ooh, that's great.
And then another thing might be a certain elemental resistance, to where you take less damage if an attack is based around a certain element, or maybe it's digging or climbing on walls or various other things. So you get to choose these 4 traits. And then for spirits, for humans, you have to go down, like, if you go down a path towards anger, you have to continue down that path if you're going towards discordance. But spirits, you can mix and match kind of. So maybe you take 1 point in flight and 1 point in elemental resistance and 1 point in like improved eyesight or something. And you get all of these kind of like benefits, and they're much more like role play or like movement or other things advantages rather than the humans kind of mechanical advantages having to do with rolls and success and things like that. And then there are stars, which are the children of spirits and humans. And they get a little bit of both, but they're a little bit weaker.
I love how like the variety you would get within a party. If you've got, yes, we're all witches, but with the different discordant levels and the different like pathways you can take, you can end up with a really, I think, eclectic group. Do you have a goal of roughly like the size of the party that you think would work best?
I think probably around 4 is the best, but it's similar to D&D in that I think it could go up to like 6 or 7. It just you have to, because challenges aren't based so much around each creature has a DC.
Oh, okay.
Challenges are a lot more fluid in how they work, because a lot of the challenges that you're going to be encountering are investigations and kind of going through these harmonization ceremonies and things like that. So I think it should be relatively easy to scale up or down challenges based on how many people are in the party. I have other thoughts on other systems where the groups are intentionally supposed to be smaller. But like I saw recently, I've seen this every once in a while, but people asking if there's like a Pokemon like RPG.
That
and I know there
resurfaces every once in a while.
Yeah. I know there was a D&D supplement somebody made that was Pokemon based, but I think they got sued. And so they had to like get rid of it. But that's out. Like a thought I had, like if I were to make a Pokemon TTRPG, how would I work? And I think specifically it would have to be 1 or 2 players, and it couldn't really go above that. And then of course you have to get somebody to create a bunch of different creatures and pay them to like draw art and various other things.
That would be a really fun like one-to-one play though. Like if like Daniel and I were like, hey, we have like a chill evening, let's just like do some Pokemon RPG. That would be like pretty fun.
Yeah. And so I think that could be really fun. And so I started going down like a mind maze, thinking of the systems and things that could work for that. And I had to stop myself. And then I'm also, after all the witches, if this is successful, I'll probably make a mecha-based TTRPG. And for that, I think the group would probably be about like 2 to 3 is the ideal.
That would be cool. Do you have long-term plans?
Not really. This is just like...
Is plans a strong word?
Plans is a strong word. Writing this has just kind of like opened the floodgates a little bit of like, I think there are certain pieces and certain mechanics within all the witches that could be altered and added to that would work very well for a mecha system, which sounds super weird being that it's like witches and mecha, but
would not have
I swear
put
it makes
together.
sense. I swear it makes sense. But just thinking about those things, and I'll see on Twitter people being like, oh, I'm looking for recommendations for a game like this. And so I'll naturally start thinking about like, how would I make that? And it's just, and of course, like if this is successful, then the idea of writing another system and continuing to do this becomes a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
But if this fails, then it's a little harder, because the thought of like, okay, I have to self-fund like another thing that'll potentially fail, and then I'll just be missing like a lot of money. It's a lot more difficult.
Yeah. The risk-based part of it is, I can imagine, it's like super stressful.
I don't really necessarily think I'll make money off of all the witches. I just want to make a cool product that people enjoy. But
and
having a successful
would be good.
I don't even really care about recouping expenses. I'm fine, like if we get to the Kickstarter and I never make money back that I've spent up till this point, that's totally fine, because it's not like I've been depriving myself or anything these past few months to make this work. But being able to have a successful Kickstarter to really pour in even more assets and art and various other things to make a fully fleshed out product would be super amazing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I don't have a successful Kickstarter, I can't afford to spend $10,000 of my personal money to realize this as much as I would like to. And I would put as much money as I could into it, but it wouldn't feel like complete to me.
Right.
And then
knowing what you like, kind of your ideal version of art and background and writers and what it could look like. Yeah.
And then like after putting so much money into a project, doing it again would be very difficult. Especially if it was like, if I commit to having a mecha TTRPG next, mecha art is expensive.
I didn't even think about that, but that makes so much sense. The amount of detail.
It is a very specialized kind of genre of art. Most artists will not touch mecha. Like, a lot of times when you come across an artist that's looking for commissions, they have a little bit of things they won't do. Some of them will say not safe for work stuff. Some of them will say furry stuff. Or like underage things and various other things. And one of the most common ones is people won't do mecha.
Oh my God.
To the point where I'm very much considering like trying to learn to draw specifically mecha related things so that I could do it myself.
I didn't realize that. It makes it makes sense to me, but it just wouldn't have occurred to me. At like first initial, like how difficult art would be to get from mecha.
But yeah, so
I know.
If
Future thoughts.
Yeah, if I don't get funding for all the witches, it just makes that like idea even harder to commit to. But I'm trying not to think too much about all that. I'm trying to just focus on all the witches and have that be the thing. Puts us into a cold sweat. I imagine
We've stressed out Trixie Wizard.
Yeah.
How do you like the so far in this like creative process working on RPGs, the system, the art, the writing? Is it an entirely different world for you than playing in RPGs? Like, do you have one you enjoy more than the other, or are they just kind of two really separate things? Because I know a lot of people who love to play and think about building RPG systems, but how much does that like link together, your enjoyment of one versus your enjoyment of the other?
They link pretty closely for me, I think. I've seen a couple of people I know recently who develop stuff, and they're like, oh, I don't really even play in any games anymore. I just like develop them. And that to me is so odd. I could not at all do that.
That would make me sad.
From playing the games, I get inspiration, and like that kind of goes hand in hand with game development. game development is very fun and exciting, and I enjoy it a lot. But then once you get to play testing said game and finding like, oh, Emma, you really fucked up on balancing this thing, and then having to like find ways to tweak it, it gets a bit stressful there. And then I don't enjoy it as much. But
that makes sense. That checks out. Yeah.
But I really enjoy both. I think game development there's something about it that's really exciting when you come up with, or you find ways to make certain ideas work that you had in mind, but you weren't entirely sure you'd be able to put together. Once you find a way to make it work and it clicks, it's like unparalleled feeling. And TTRPGs are fun for me because of like just role playing is so much fun, and I love
so
role
much
playing.
fun.
It's great. So they're different kinds of enjoyments, definitely, but I think they go hand in hand and they inspire each other a lot.
That's good to know.
I don't know that I could say I enjoy one over the other.
Got it. Do you find it similar to DMing a little bit, game creation, or are they just kind of two different things in your brain?
I think they're very similar until I put pen to paper for both of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because my method is incredibly similar for both. Of just, I think about it a lot. But the kind of preparation that goes into each of them once I actually have to sit down and start prepping each is incredibly different. Because DMing, I think about story a lot more.
Right.
Rather than like mechanically, how is X thing gonna work? Because if you're a GM that likes doing puzzles or traps, then I think they could be really similar. But I don't really do much of either of those.
It's a lot of the puzzles and traps are so much planning for sometimes.
I'm not that smart.
You're looking for.
Yeah. But game development is thinking very, very specifically about the mechanics and the rules. And for an improv DM like me, I don't do that very often.
Roaming, did someone say puzzles and traps? We know that's your jam, Roaming.
It's my time.
A wild roaming D&D has appeared.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, they're very different, but they're very cool, and it's all fun. TTRPGs are just fun.
They're just fun. It's just a world I'm have joined late in life relative to me, and it's just like.
When did you start?
I didn't start playing until like late 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't start like interacting with the online community, I think, until last year sometime, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is my 10-year anniversary year.
Congratulations.
I think I started in like October. And there's 12 people. This isn't going to spread much. If you think about it enough, a witchy Kickstarter is great for October. So it'll also be like my 10-year TTRPG like anniversary. So that's just a fun thing.
Hypothetically, theoretically, could be a great time.
Theoretically, could be a great time. But yeah, so I did that, but it was all like home games and stuff with college friends for a long time. I didn't join the greater online community.
The atmosphere of the online community.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit maybe in 2019, but largely, or not even 2019, I think it was 2017. But I think largely I wasn't involved in the greater TTRPG discourse until last year when I started interacting with Stella's channel.
I mean, same. Like,
Yeah.
Weekly plug for Stella's channel. It is such a great place for
Exclusive
people. I know. Exclusive scoop, 1. 2, just like a place for people who are like interested in jumping into the online community. Like that's Trixie. Yeah, Trixie Wizard, same. I think Silver Bullet. I don't know if you also, that was kind of your start in the like online RPG world. But 1, the people are great. You can avoid like certain dark holes of Twitter. Ignore that. The people in the community are great. And I don't know, it's been a really fun way to kind of add to my enjoyment of RPG games outside of home games with friends, which I love, and which is what like got me interested in like D&D and RPGs to begin with. But it's such a cool world when you start to like meet people and find out different systems and creators and things like that. Hey, Crimson.
Hey, Crimson. Yeah, it's great. I think interacting with Twitch streamers is a fantastic way to get into the TTRPG community at large. It's a great, what's the word?
Platform?
I don't remember the word.
It's not, you're not saying
like great transition into,
yeah, introduction.
Like, from them, you'll be introduced to other TTRPG communities through raids and things, and then you start following the players and the GM on Twitter, and then
join some
retweet
Discords.
Cool stuff. So you start joining other people, and then you join some Discords, and then before you know it, you're going to Gen Con.
Before you know it, do you think Springboard's good? I like networking. I like Springboard.
Springboard, yeah. Springboarding is a great word. Yeah.
Do you think that you are going to be reaching out and trying to find some play testers in the future? If people are interested in that?
Yes. So I've already reached out to 2 people. One of which is Stella Luna. She's going to run a streamed one-shot closer to October.
Randomly, a random month that she is.
Random month.
They have chosen
random
for.
Month.
Random month. Who can say why?
They're just really busy until then.
They're so busy.
And they're going to put together a group and run a one-shot of all the witches, and then I've also reached out to Draconics, and he's checking with their like network to see if it's something they can do. But he seems really interested. And then I also did you watch Draconics is in this new show like Kingmaker or something? Did you watch
saw that posted. I haven't watched. I was planning to watch the VOD. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. So I've only seen the first episode, but the first episode was incredible. It was very cinematic, I think is a good word for it.
Oh, I'm obsessed with that.
And it felt almost like a theater production, the way it was playing out. And I really, really enjoyed it. And that gave me the idea of having a very theatrical production of a session for all the witches and using that as like a marketing kind of tool.
It's so fun to watch actual play that have that kind of like theatrical quality of like the RP is so like forward, the like music, the sound. I think it's those kind of streams are really special. They really like are kind of set themselves apart.
Yeah. So part of me wants to put on a production like that where I GM a game, and I have players and I have other people come in who are playing specific parts, and it's just this very big theatrical thing. I think that would be really fun, and that's something that I might do. It's more of a thing of, will I have the spoons and capability to do it as things are coming up? But
you have a few things going on.
I have a few things going on.
One or two
but
things.
for that, I would reach out to people about being players or appearing on it.
But all of it would,
other
like,
than
if
that,
it ends up being, you'll all announce it through your All the Witches Twitch channel in terms of like, or Twitter channel, like actual plays and things that come up for All the Witches. So if people are following that, they will get the news.
Absolutely. So give that a follow if you haven't already, because all the announcements and stuff will come through there. And I'll be doing some smaller, like largely non-streamed play tests where I'm playing with like friends and stuff and getting their opinions. If things are ready, I might do a streamed play test next month for Pride, but I don't know.
I will not hold you to it, but that would be awesome.
Yeah. If I do, it'll be later in the month.
Awesome.
But yeah, all that is going on, and who knows, I might release a quick start playtest thing, but I don't know.
Scoops.
It's all up
you
in
heard
the
it
air.
here. Scoops.
The scoops. Might, maybe, possibly.
The possible scoops, the potential scoops. Do you want to also, since we're kind of somehow at 11 already, like say again the stuff going on in your channel coming up?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Emma, also known as Emma Panada. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Emma Panada. On Twitch, we have 2 D&D campaigns going. We've got Curse of Strahd, which is Tuesdays, and we should be playing this upcoming Tuesday. I'm really excited for it. And we also have Lost in Ravenloft, which is a campaign that I run on Sunday evenings at 8 EST, and we are playing tomorrow. So come hang out with us. We all use these cute little PNG tubers of our characters, and it's a good time.
The art is really cute. For like a Ravenloft setting, it's like very cute.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's a ton of fun. Come hang out with us. If you want to know more about All the Witches, or you want to follow progress as it's going, go follow twitter.com/allthewitches_. And we do have, I mean, I've kind of talked about most things here in potentially more detail, but I did write an article last week, and it should be published on a friend's website soon. And I'll be tweeting out that article once it's ready. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Amazing. And then this channel, I'll do like the blurb. Heroes Brunch, like Heroes Feast, but in the morning and with waffles. We do all of our subs and proceeds and bits and cheers and yada yada. Ad revenue, everything goes to charities that we love each month. This month we are supporting Stop AAPI Hate. So check them out. They're amazing. We want to do a Pride-focused charity for next month. So if you have suggestions or promotions or nonprofits that you think do incredible work, hit us up in our Discord or on Twitter. And let's see. Oh, final announcement for this channel. My D&D group is coming to visit me over Memorial Day weekend, next weekend. So they're all flying in. I'm very excited. But one of them will be staying in this room. So I will not be having a Saturday morning stream so that I don't destroy Kim. But we will be having a stream Monday morning of that Memorial Day weekend. And we're going to go over like how to create oh shit combat moments. Not that you don't love your players and you want them to succeed and you love them, but sometimes they've gotten a little like comfortable.
Get too comfortable. Yeah.
They're too comfortable, and like maybe you want to throw in, I don't know, a monster that's going to absorb any attempt to cast healing spells. So we're going to talk about just like really kind of horrific things that you can do in combat every once in a while. Just make your players say oh shit. Not all the time, not because we're mean, just because it's fun that way. But yeah, we'll do that Monday morning instead of next Saturday. So, I don't know, I'll tweet about it. But, Emma, thank you for joining. That was incredible. I'm very excited for All the Witches.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad I got a space and opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, I think Z's gonna make us some highlights and some clips, so we'll post those, and going to be very excited about all the Witches news that comes up in the future. And if anybody has other thoughts about systems they're making, ideas for creation, feel free to throw that in our Discord, because it's a fun group of people who really likes to talk about RPG systems, not RPG
True.
games.
TTRPG games?
TTRPG
What?
games. The games. Our game overlords.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's raid over to cover artist, All the Witches cover artist Carson. Is Carson? No, he's not streaming right now.
He's not streaming right now.
Carson, no, my plans. Anyone have friends streaming that we'll raid over? Other than that, otherwise I'll do maybe Games Tavern.
There's Cypher of Tyr, but they're playing Dragon Age rather than doing D&D stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we should do some kind of... Oh, Art of Mike Disney is painting Reaper miniatures. That sounds fun.
There you go.
Let's do that.
Sounds Gucci.
Thanks for hanging, everybody. See if this works. I did it! Alright. Go take your Heroes Feast benefits. Immunity to poison. You're not really immune to poison. Don't take poison. An ability to... What's the Heroes Feast? Advantage on wisdom saves. Inability to be frightened. Go take all of that. You're right over.
Yay, we did
it. Thank you so much. That was really fun. I'm sorry I made you talk so much, but I had a lot of questions.
I mean, I expected that.
Okay, good.
You were talking about my system, so it's all good. It's all good. Thank you so much for having me. Like, I'm really glad I got a space to talk about it.
Me
honestly.
too. I'm honestly really excited to play now that I've heard more things. So
yeah,
I cannot wait. And
cool.
Very late congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. I will let you off to the rest of your Saturday.
All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Saturday as well.
You too. Bye, Emma.